Welcome to Holistic Health and Healing, a show offering solutions for the body, being, and beyond. In each episode, we discuss topics that empower you to take a holistic approach to step into your unique voice in this world. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. K and Hank Setela, the Sonic Shaman.
Good morning, everyone. Surprise, we're on early today at 9:30, and we might just cut it a little bit shorter today because I'm at the center. We're actually hosting a 4-day workshop, which is why I had to move things around a little bit. But welcome to the show, and today we're talking all about solar plexus and gut health, or anything else that happens to come up.
Anything in that arena down here.
And you're welcome to contribute if you have particular questions, something going on in your world, whether or not it's on topic or not. We feel free to offer your contributions, your questions. We'd like to go down any rabbit hole that might be coming up in your world. So this is your show as much as it is our show. So Dr. K, where do we start on the whole solar plexus and gut health? I know that's all related.
Yeah, this is probably a 2-3 hour conversation, but we'll kind of pick some parts and pieces. And I thought we'd just get maybe a little half and half of medical stuff and energy stuff, because the stomach is such a place where we hold everything, isn't it, Hank? Like that's
it is.
My gosh, it's a hot spot.
And it's a physical holding thing, obviously, for the food that we're digesting, and energetically. Like in shamanism, they have, in the Peruvian tradition, they say that the children of the north walk around with leaking navels. And there's this idea in shamanism that there's this energy center called a nawi, which is like an eye that opens and closes, which is how energy comes into and expresses out of your field. But we've never learned how to regulate that. So not only are you having food that you're ingesting, it's also all this energy that you're ingesting from all the people around you, because we have no concept in the north of needing to regulate this influx and outflow of energy.
Yeah, so it's so much, very simplistically, of how much energy are you carrying, where is the stress that my good old-fashioned idea of stress. We hold a lot of it in shoulders, but we hold a lot of it in our gut and the things that go on in our lives. And acid reflux, which is one thing that I'll touch on today, because a lot of people have this indigestion, this sour stomach, and acid reflux and heartburn. Well, that's kind of the same thing, but this is all, a lot of it culminates, what's behind the scenes is energy stuff and stress and the foods that we eat. So I'll pick apart little pieces and parts and toss them in here to see if we can help. And maybe Hank can chime in and what we can do to clear out some of the energy, because when you're really stressed, I can tell you one of the biggest places that it hits, and I have so many clients that have stomach issues, and I'm intuitive enough to kind of see that this is where a lot of it's starting is the stress. And I'm always like, you got to handle your worry. You got to handle this, because this is where it's manifesting for you. It is sitting in your gut, and then from there it sprouts out to different spots. So where to start? Gosh, there's so much. Definitely handling the worry, the stress, the whole umbrella of stress, whatever it is that's nagging at you. What in life can't you digest? What is it that you can't or don't want to, what's the word, Hank?
Process,
process, right.
And what then past part of the problem is too, that you are aware of so much, and that it's not even yours to begin with. But because we've never been taught to differentiate what's ours and what's not, like we tend to hold on to things that have no place for us to begin with. So I think a huge tool to start with is just to start identifying, is this my stress or is this my neighbor's stress? Is it my stress or is it Dr. K's stress who's getting ready for the bodybuilding? Yeah. Is it truly yours to deal with? And if not, return to sender with consciousness. Like right there, you're just sending it back. You don't even need to deal with it. And then the stress that remains, there's a ton of energy techniques like the Prometheus process. There's tools in shamanism like the Saman Jikui, all those things. But then there's also the actual physical part of it too. Like, does your body have the things that it needs to digest and process the physical things that you're ingesting as well?
Right. So I think the first place I tell people to look at, when somebody comes in with stomach issues, is let's look at what's going on in your life. Where are you having a lot of stress at work or family life or relationships, because you're gonna hold a lot of that in the gut. And so sometimes we have to eliminate or calm that piece down so that the body itself can start processing? Or what is it in your life that you didn't want to digest, meaning somebody told you something, or you have a situation in your life that you're just, I'm like, not going to forgive this person. I'm not, this doesn't agree with me. I don't agree with what's going on here, and I'm just not going to digest it. I'm having a hard time processing it in my head. And we always like, you feel things in your gut, right? What's your gut instinct? So a lot of those things sit there and they culminate. And so when I start with somebody, I really try to do a healing process where I clear out the energy from the gut first, because it's very challenging sometimes if I'm trying to heal the gut, but yet this person goes home and they're worrying and sweating about things and just, having a tough time, because then it just drives biochemically, it will drive a reaction in the body. So that's the very first thing that I would say. Look at what's going on in your life. Is your life nice? Is it calm? Is it relatively peaceful? We all have stress. I'm not going to say we're going to eliminate it 100%. Rate your stress from 1 to 10. Where do you think you sit? There are things in your life that you're having a hard time processing, that are not sitting well, a situation, something that's kind of sitting. And that's something we kind of got to look at and clear out a little bit in order for us to move to the next steps. And I think one of the biggest things that people struggle with is like gas bloating and heartburn's a big one. So a lot of people are on proton pump inhibitors, and those are your Nexiums, your Pepcids. Those are not good, guys. They are not good, and most people think they are, and your doctor will give you those. But it's suppressing hydrochloric acid in your body, and we want hydrochloric acid. It is your friend. It processes food. It digests your food, and if you're not...
Speaking of food, I think somebody's hungry. They're like, I hear food, meow.
The star of the show is arriving. So better late than never, buddy. So we don't want to be on proton pump inhibitors. We don't want to be on Nexium and Pepcid and all these things, because they actually stop the hydrochloric acid production from your cells. And that's your friend. So 18 million Americans are actually on proton pump inhibitors. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I remember years ago I remember like those late night infomercials. They were like the natural cures they don't want you to know about.
Yeah, and I have that book.
and one of the things that it said is a lot of acid reflux was actually a underproduction of
Correct.
acid, and that they would recommend you actually increase the acid in your stomach and it goes away. It was completely, for me at the time, counterintuitive to how you think it should work. But from what you just said, there is a little bit of a substance to that then.
And more of that has come out. There's lots of research. So it's hypochlorhydria versus hyperchlorhydria. That's either hypo means too low, hyper means too much. So a lot of the symptoms of low acid production are very similar, if not almost equivocal, to too much acid production. There is ways to test, very few ways to test how much stomach acid your body's producing, and it's not fun. One of the tests is you have to swallow this. It looks like a pretty big capsule, and it sends like a Wi-Fi signal to a computer program as it measures how much stomach acid your stomach is producing. But sometimes they have to pull it back out.
Maybe it's more fun to pull, like, I don't know if you ever watched the show Dr. House, where instead of like actually doing the test, he would just start the treatment and let's see how they reacted. I'm not suggesting that for anybody, I'm not a medical doctor, but like like if you were to take an antacid and then you took something to increase acid, you could tell based on how your body responded probably how.
You can. That's the other way to do it. You can start with 5 pills of hydrochloric acid, and if you don't get any stomach pain, take more. If you're up to 8 pills of hydrochloric acid and you finally feel acidity in your stomach, that's pretty high, and we know that you probably have under acid production. So that's the back end of the office on how to test that. But it is a little tricky. But the FDA actually only recommends taking proton pump inhibitors for 4 to 8 weeks. It's not a ongoing treatment, and yet so many people are on acid reflux medications, and so you're killing your hydrochloric acid. Then it's like, how do we reestablish that? Reestablishing hydrochloric acid can be a little tricky. There's kind of a few ways. Drinking celery juice is one way to promote your body. This you're gonna have to do it for a really long time, but that's one thing. Celery juice squeezed, or not? Well, you have
juiced.
Juiced. I apologize, guys. My brain is really, really slow. I'm on really low short chain fatty acids, so I am down to the wire here. So Hank will fill in.
Well, yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Dr. K is building up to a body show, and that is going to be, I think, next.
May.
Well, we're not going to be streaming next week because she's going to be
I'll be
completely useless, really.
I will be
because
useless.
So hold some space for her, and also pull some energy for her to pull off a win, so that it can be a great contribution. Just pull energy from all of the universe through Dr. K through that event
Thank
for her
you.
to win the event, and that could be a great contribution to Dr. K. And
I
then
thank you so much.
I even thought about driving to this body show so I could actually record it and play it on air, but my wife didn't think it sounded like a fun thing to do, to drive all
didn't
that way.
wanna do
Just I guess we have a yard work and stuff to do, so we'll have to skip it this time.
Bummer.
I would have loved to get out of the yard work though. But the other thing is, trying these things is one thing, but also like, what would it take for people to get intuitive and in communion with their body? Like in Access, we have the thymus exercise, and that's on my Sonic Shaman YouTube channel. It's called Activating the Seat of the Soul. These particular energy flows that help the body and the being come into congruency. And that is like a huge thing. Like, so many of us aren't on speaking terms with our body. Like, we're fighting our body instead of working with our body. And what would it take to be on the same page? Because a lot of these things you might be able to know intuitively. Yeah, I know that this is right or wrong in my body, but we have to do the work to kind of open up those lines of communication to have that dialogue.
You do, because that gets tricky too. Where's Mark? I know he has a comment on this. Is he not on
No,
today?
well, keep in mind we're streaming at 9:30.
Early. He's probably going to get
We should have
on at
messaged
10.
him. He'll be like, "What's up, guys? You just started without me." We did have Doug making a comment though. Good morning, guys. I'm still here where I can be. The downside of working a 7-day week. Oh, sure. Well, the cool thing is you can always catch us on the replay.
Yeah.
And as we get a little bit more time, I would love to make some other videos that we just post throughout the week. Like Dr. K already does that. I do that, but like together, just making a little bit of other cool things for people to watch
On the horizon.
on the horizon. And as I'm talking about the body show too, as a reminder, on Monday there is no energy clinic, but we will be back on the third Monday of the month. In fact, we already had some signups for that, so those filled pretty quickly. So I'm just mentioning it now because I'm thinking about it. But if you're interested in coming to those, don't delay, sign up, and you can do that at emergenceofbeing.com. And the other thing there's the website for that. The other thing I wanted to mention, since we're talking about the medication, is one of Dr. K's specialties, in my opinion, is to work with people to reduce or eliminate medicines, like going through a program and all that. And you can go to emergenceofbeing.com. The best place to start with that is just get her initial evaluation, get the numbers, and see where you're at, and then she can recommend, plans and programs and things. And sometimes I'm included in those programs. So she might say, like, you have to go see the crazy shaman in order to deal with this.
Hank's works way out here. I work on one energy level. He works on a whole other energy level, which is great because we're hitting all angles. So
yeah, which is why I love the clinics. Like, we really hit everybody, like, out from all angles.
Yeah.
So you can check that out on the website. But anyway, we digress to solar plexus and gut health.
So if you're stressed, definitely come to the clinic. That's one way to start clearing out that stress, as woo as it sounds, guys. Seriously. Cleaning up some of that stress where you can get calmer, your breathing, your stomach will start to feel better. So what was I saying? Oh, the FDA really recommends using proton pump inhibitors. So that's your Nexium, your Pepcid, really only for a 4 to 8 week treatment, but there's so many people that are on it consistently. Proton pump inhibitors, so they stop your acid production, but somehow your food has to get digested. So your body will produce other nasty acids to try to get it digested, and alternatively, the food sits in your gut. We don't want that. It putrefies. That's such a crazy word, but it sits there and it kind of just rots. And then it produces ammonia gases and all these things that get into your system that you really don't want in your blood. So really important. If you're having heartburn, let's take a look. Also, after about the age of 60, we start to produce less hydrochloric acid as we go. So we may have to supplement a little bit. You can use something like a digestive enzyme. I recommend everybody take a digestive enzyme. If you look on the back of the bottle and it has a little bit of HCl, that's a good thing to take. That means it has hydrochloric acid in it, so you can supplement with that and betaine. So those two things can help you regenerate some of the hydrochloric acid. Or really, I do celery juice as much as I can. That's something I do very first thing in the morning. Before anything you drink, juice some celery juice. Wait about 15 minutes, then I do lemon water to get the bile going. And that's a good way to start reestablishing it. It just it's going to take quite a while.
And if you're going to choose
So,
celery juice, that's one of the dirty dozen foods, is it not?
yeah, buy
So,
organic.
so you want to buy organic just because the nature of how that plant grows and the texture on the outside, it just retains a lot of the things that they spray on for commercial crops. So all in all, better anything you're going to juice and use the whole thing. Organic is just better in general, but especially for
Always.
something like celery juice or strawberries is another one. Apples
Yep.
is another one. Anything from the dirty dozen, organic is the way to go.
Yeah, we'll have to. I should post that. Like all the there doesn't have a list of all those foods. I did a video on that. If you guys go to my Facebook page, I went through all those fruits and veggies that are kind of the big ones that are sprayed heavily. So buy organic, so you could do that, or you just supplement digestive enzyme that has a little hydrochloric acid in it. So really important. That's kind of people that have low stomach acid end up developing a lot of problems down the road because the food's not being digested. And that's the first thing that happens. You eat your food, goes down your esophagus, gets into the stomach. If it's not cleaned up and cleared out of there, what do you think happens? It just sits and rots, and that creates problems. So that creates, I mean, rheumatoid arthritis. It's been linked to so many conditions. I'm not going to get into that because it's a long conversation. But that's one of the very, very first places you want to handle things.
Right. And that's handling the physical side. From the emotional, from the empathic side, the question is like, what are you aware of that you're not willing to perceive, know, be, and receive? Like, where are you in judgment about things? Because that's what sticks us. That's what holds in place. Is like, if you're aware of your neighbor and they're an a-hole or whatever, you've labeled them as an a-hole because of that judgment, you're holding that energy instead of being an allowance of just letting them be where they're at. And the energy of allowance things move through you. And any judgment, good or bad, it sticks to you. And so like one huge tool is, what are you aware of that you're not willing to acknowledge, that if you were to acknowledge and be an allowance of, could shift everything with ease? I know it's a wordy question. A simplified version is, what judgments do I have that I can resolve at this moment in order to free myself from these energies that might be manifesting as acid reflux or something else going on in the gut, like irritable bowel syndrome or anything like that? Because in metaphysics, we believe that sometimes a disease is just a disease. Like Freud said, a cigar is just a cigar. But in 99 some percent, maybe 90% of the cases, there's some sort of energetic quality that started out here in the energy field, first. And because we didn't deal with it, it starts to get closer to the body, it gets bigger because like energy attracts like. So every time you run into an a-hole neighbor or a person in the mall or whatever, all that energy is accumulating, and then it becomes a physical manifestation in the body, manifesting as leaky gut syndrome, which is a big one, or acid reflux or irritable bowel or whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so in agreement with that. And that's really what I work on completely, because if we don't handle that, I can give you all the betaine and hydrochloric acid and papaya and whatever foods. You're going to get about 50% results. I mean, and this is the biggest challenge that I think I come across in my practice is I can give you all the suggestions, but I see where people are stuck worry-wise and whatever is going on in their system, and that keeps them really tight, and it keeps the stomach tight, and it manifests in the system. And I know this is woo-woo, but here's a little
We love the
example.
woo-woo.
Well, I don't know what our audience is, but for those of you that are like, what the heck? No, it's very true. But this is maybe something that people can identify with. Have you ever said, I feel a cold coming on? I feel a cold coming on. If anybody here wants to comment on that, I'm sure everybody's gone like, I feel a cold coming on. I'm feeling run down. I'm feeling a cold coming on. Where do you think that's sitting? So let's see, you've been overdoing it. You've been too stressed at work. You've been under a lot of duress. That's usually what's causing it. We don't see stress, but stress is, like Hank and I talk about, it's sitting on the outside of you. It's kind of in this bubble. And over time, what's on the outside has to come on the inside. And when something's on the inside, it has to come out. The body doesn't retain it. It wants it out, but that in turn creates a symptom somewhere. And so that's usually how the cold comes out, because we got to get it out, right? So it's the same thing with anything, any kind of duress that you are, stress that you're under, resentment, judgment, all these things that stick us. They do kind of find a little spot to sit. And that could be your shoulders, it could be your stomach, it could be multiple places. Stomach is one of those spaces. So just get into awareness. Start being more aware when you're around certain situations, or when you go to your mother-in-law's house and you're like, oh man, I don't want to go. Watch how you kind of feel constricted and you feel not so great. And when you're around that kind of situation over and over and over, watch how your shoulders start to get tighter. You feel more angry. And those things over time lodge themselves, and the stomach is one of those places. So that's my 2 cents on that. Really, on handling heartburn. And there are things we can give you if you are having heartburn that are natural. So I want to comment on that too. You don't have to use Pepsi. You don't have to use Nexium. I use a handful of products that calm that down naturally. And we start to repair and see what we can do so that the heartburn does repair. Because I have a client that it took us about 3 months, but we gave her something and she's almost no heartburn now. And she was taking Nexium for over 10 years. So I'm like, that's a long time.
And energetically, some of the things you could do in tuning fork wise, there's frequencies for a healthy small and large intestine. There's also from the chakra set for the solar plexus, it's the frequency of the sun. And Goddess Elite, it takes me 4 to 6 weeks right now to get tuning forks out, but Goddess Elite, which is local, she has the tuning fork sold individually, and you can get just like the sun frequency. And so those frequencies, using them, activating them, and just kind of going in the energy field right by the stomach, that gives it an energy medicine, if you will, that can help for the energies that are there to be moved and digested. And that, so you're doing the physical part of it and you're doing the metaphysical part of it as well.
Anything you can do to help yourself. Yep.
Yeah. And then we have Sandra commenting that I feel most of us are constantly living in flight or fight mode, that our bodies are now dependent on the stress hormones. How can we combat this?
Oh, yes, this is our life. Well, my response to that would be start on the work, because I've been at this work for a long time. And I can tell you there is, Hank and I always talk about this, there is this point where things pivot and it's like, oh, I've shifted into that 51% and things get better. I'm much better than, where I was many, many years ago.
It's like a teeter-totter or a scale. Like if you start putting like things that are going to change into a new possibility, and this, I keep forgetting that it's mirrored, on this side of the scale, if you keep putting things on that are helping, eventually that scale tips and now it's going to shift like that. And there becomes this ease that comes to it. But the important thing is to pick something, start working at it, and stay the course, even if things don't seem like they're working. Because for me, it took me literally a year when I started doing this work, thinking all this is a bunch of bull crap. It's not working at all. It was just a mind exercise at that point. I didn't feel any benefit from it. But about a year into it, there was this tipping point that it's just like, oh, wow, I'm in the space of gratitude. Because my mantra, my tool that I started with was self-pity and gratitude cannot coexist. And every time something showed up in my world that I went to, negative about, I would put it into a statement of gratitude, even if I didn't feel it or believe it. And there just came a point where I didn't have to do that. I just was grateful for whatever showed up. And that's what we're talking about, the tipping point. Like pick a tool, any tool, start working with it, add tools in as you go, but just keep building that momentum. And eventually you start to gain that traction that's going to just help you. It's going to become easy. It's smooth going on ease, and things will still pop up and blindside you, but you then at that point have the tools and you move through things way more rapidly. And that by that point too, you're going to have all kinds of different people around you. Like Dr. K and I, we have a huge network of people that could support us as we move through our stuff, and you would have that network too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started on a routine. So I think I shared this story a long time ago when I was in residency. Gosh, when was it? 2010. I was under so much stress. I had so many stomach problems. I wasn't eating well because at residency, you just don't. You got a burger in your mouth and you're running down the hall because you got 20 patients to see in a surgery. It starts in 5 minutes. It's not a healthy way of being. I had so many stomach problems. They couldn't find anything wrong, of course. After residency ended, I saw somebody to clear out some of the energy and took a few homeopathics. And within like 2-3 sessions, I was night and day difference. But again, I was not in the hospitals anymore. I wasn't under those black clouds anymore. So just clearing out the energy. So I'd say the first thing to do, Sandra, would be maybe to come to one of our energy clinics and have some of that cleared out, because this is not a one-time and it's gone deal. We are in a life where, we are in a constant fight or flight mode. It's just the way our lives are. So constant clearing of the energy is really helpful. And then start adding in techniques daily. Get a routine daily. Like what I do every morning, I get up and I do a short meditation and I do a gratitude list and I keep myself calm and I ground myself. I use a very specific technique that I ground myself to start my day. And I get in gratitude every single day and almost every single night too. So getting a technique that you're doing consistently every single day, no missing. It's not like you do it and then you do it again in 5 weeks, or consistency will yield results. And then, then add in the food. So those three things, I think, will, and homeopathics to clear things out and keep you in a calmer state, would be a great combination of keeping things under wraps.
So, and specifically, when there are stress hormones, I'm not familiar with which hormones are stress hormones. Are there specific supplements that are good for hormones in general? Like I know that there's like things that help with natural estrogen and things like that, but I don't know about
There's
this
a
type
lot.
of.
I really test the hormones to see what's off, because giving somebody something that they may not need. A lot of people's adrenals are depleted, but I've had people that I thought their adrenals are going to be depleted and I run a saliva test and they're not so bad. So yeah, there are like adrenal assist homeopathics that you can use to help. Cortisol is your stress hormone. She may be referring to that. But epinephrine, norepinephrine, those get released. Catecholamines get released when we're under stress. So we have to kind of see where those are, because if I give you something and it makes things worse, if I just shoot from the hip and just give you something, it could make things worse. But overall, any adaptogenics for the adrenal glands could be helpful. Sometimes we need some DHEA. It's dependent, really.
All these big words. I need I need the Cliff Notes version as closed captions underneath Dr. K when she talks. And then there's also tools like there is, because I'm a big advocate of a lot of us are empaths and a lot of the stuff isn't even ours to begin with. So in terms of clearing, where clearing is important, but there's this app, it's from Access Consciousness, Dr. Dane here. It's called Who Does This Belong To? And you download it and every once in a while it just goes bing. It just gives you this little tone, and it's your reminder to ask yourself, who does this belong to? And you start training yourself throughout the day, consciously and unconsciously, to automatically be in this mode that you're not going to be taking in the stuff that isn't yours. Because right now, like imagine like if you're bringing in like all this energy and 90% isn't even yours, if you don't even take that on to begin with, now the 10% that is actually yours to deal with becomes much more manageable. Mm-hmm. So a huge part for me, like an app like that, or whatever tool you want to use. So if you want to have a crystal as a physical representation of intention, like tourmaline, or another protective crystal, like something where you are intending, I'm not taking this on any longer. I'm only going to deal with my own crap.
And just the decision, and just saying that I'm not taking this stuff on, because you're around people all the time. And if you just gain a little bit of awareness, like I don't like the way that this feels, ask yourself, is this mine? And it's probably not yours. You're feeling the stress of the person around you. And I'm like, mm-hmm. I'm not taking this person's stuff on. It's an interesting, like we always say, it's an interesting point of view that they're reacting this way, because the second you dive into somebody else's stuff, like people love to turn on the news in the morning. Why? Why would you want to start your day that way? With the stress and the Fox News. Oh my gosh.
Well, to her point, we become dependent on those stress hormones. And how do we get those stress hormones?
They're drivers.
Watch more. Right. So like it's starting to choose differently. Well, if what could I choose that's going to create lightness in my life? Like what meditations or, classes could I take? What books could I read? Like one of my favorite books of all time is called Being You, Changing the World by Dr. Dane here. Like putting yourself, giving your it's quality in, quality out. What are you putting into your energy field instead of news or whatever else is showing up in your life? Start to choose things that are going to start to create that pivot and really start to create, possibilities for you.
And you will start to pivot, but you got to start taking those little steps. Don't turn on the news in the morning. Don't get into other people's stuff. Gain more awareness. I think that the easiest place to start for everybody, that everybody can start right now, just take a look at your life. Just gain some awareness and ask yourself where you're feeling stress, what is pricking you, what are some things that are nagging you, and start working on those. We can help clear that out too. You don't feel that you have to do this alone. As a matter of fact, I don't suggest that you do it alone, because it can be really heavy sometimes. I mean, I get help. I'm sure Hank gets help. Sometimes we got to go to somebody else. We're all here to help each other. So let us help clear some of this stuff out. We have really good techniques to do that.
Ooh. I just so just to clear this for people, because I had this like screaming in my head, every place where you're taught that the only person you can count on is you, and that it is a sign of weakness to receive help, will you destroy and create that? Right and wrong, good and bad, bottom pack, all night shorts, boys and men. It's like, how many of us really would look at any sort of contribution to us as a weakness, because we're the only one that we can count on. The only way you can never be disappointed if you don't put any trust in anything other than you. Everything that is, destroyed and created, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. That's just an access clearing statement. But truly, like what energy, space, consciousness, and choice could your body being on beyond body, being, and beyond be, to receive the infinite contribution from the universe and all of your guides in the spirit world with total ease. And get the energy of that. Like, how much contribution could you be really getting right now to have your life be smooth, going on ease? And everything that doesn't allow that, destroy it and create it, right? Wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all night shorts, boys and beyonds. So that's a cool little tool there. Rewind that, go through those clearings again, and really that's the energy to start stepping into the space of possibility.
Yeah, the other thing I just downloaded and just heard is there's resistance and money are the two things sometimes that prevent somebody. And the resistance is going to be different for each person, but why would you resist asking for help? Ask yourself why you're resisting. And number two, financially, because there's a lot of people that won't spend that dime because for whatever reason, it's too much. Money's just an energy, guys. And if you can spend that little dime to get yourself to that next level so you feel amazing permanently, I mean, it's worth it. So don't hold back. It will all get paid for. And my little example of that is, how many things have you bought about 10 years ago that have already gotten paid for and done, and you're not even thinking about that anymore? Don't worry about it. It will get paid for. Yep. If you need the help, get it, Yep. That's important.
And on the money subject, if you go on Facebook and just put in Emergence of Being, look for the group.
Oh yeah, and Hank's got a
join
for you there.
Yeah, join the group. And I have under topics book readings, and I have a 5-part series where I read the book Money's Not the Problem You Are, which gives a ton of tools around money, a ton of tools. And I'm going to be starting, I was going to do it this week, but then I got busy. The next book I'm going to do is Write Riches for You. And that's also going to be available in that group. And the group is free. Like, you don't have to pay to be in the group. It's just like a lot of places where we interact more with people. But you can start with those types of things. And then for people who want to take a real deep dive into money, in 3 weeks, I think it is, I'm hosting a certified facilitator from Access Consciousness, where this class called How to Become Money. It's a workbook from like 1996 or 86. And going through this workbook helps you to identify all the blocks and places where you're not willing to receive money or receive abundance. It's not just money. Money's an energy. So They call it money, but it's really, money is just an energy, and as easily as you are breathing in right now, that could be as how easily money could come to you.
Yeah, and so things can shift for you, and they will shift for you. I have to say, I promise, I guarantee, if you're willing to just be receptive, because I've gone through it all, so I know it works. So don't hold back. Ask us for help. So those 3 things, Sandra, I think just clearing out the energy. I even forget what number 2 was. So bad, but I can't remember one thing to the next these days.
We're
Guys,
lucky
it'll come back.
Dr. K
I'll be back, I promise.
Yeah, she can't even think right now. Her brain is completely mush.
It's crazy. Although I'm very calm, so I love this. Like, the anxiety can't even creep up because I'm so calm.
I've noticed that when I recently did my master cleanse, like while I was cleansing, I was in a complete state of Zen. Like normally, like how I might start getting into reaction mode with my children. Nothing could upset me. It was bizarre. And I'm like, what would it take for me to have that when I'm actually eating food? And does that mean that like the food and the energy in our food has that big of an impact on me?
Yeah.
Like, because it's really, that's something to think about. Because what a master cleanse, for those of you who don't know, you don't eat anything. All you're doing is like this lemonade, which is spring water, lemon juice, grade B organic maple syrup, and cayenne pepper. That's all your caloric intake. And while I was doing this, I had more alertness, more energy, more everything. And it like nothing could upset me at all. And then as soon as I started eating again, it was like this reactionary type energy came out, which still I don't react a lot, but the reaction is there, especially around my kids. But how big of an impact, how sensitive are we to the energies in the food that we eat?
Yeah, perfect. Very interesting example. So that's that. What else? The other thing about
Mark's here.
Proton pump inhibitors have also been found. They've also found recently that people that take these acid reflux pills have had worse reactions with COVID. So that's interesting. So this just goes to show how important your gut is. That COVID is not just a lung disease. They've had so many links to the gut. So your gut's so important. Your gut produces serotonin. It produces dopamine. It's a lot of where it's stored. So if your gut's not working well, guys, you're going to feel more depressed. You're going to feel more fatigued. So it behooves you to really work on the gut. I do a GI profile where it's a stool test where it runs a very, very deep profile on what's going on in your gut so we can start repairing things. Parasites will make you cuckoo, depressed, brain fog, more anxiety. So looking at where you have parasites, bacteria, you're not gonna, I mean, we all kind of have them hanging out, but if they're overgrowing and having a problem, we got to figure that out. So there's so many things with the gut. Gluten is a big thing. There's a way to test for gluten. I just did a video on this. We do a zonulin test. So zonulin is a protein that is in between your tight junctions, which are cells that line your gut lining. And they kind of, when those tight junctions aren't tight the way they need to be, food gets passed through. You don't want that. That gets in your bloodstream. Zonulin is a marker that we can test for to see if you have leaky gut. Very simple. And it's been associated with autoimmune disorders and all sorts of things. So then we can get in there and start repairing stuff. That's the cool part. Let me see, what else? Removing pathogens. So I have like a 7 action step. Where are we with time? So that, we have time. Okay.
We got time. And I think it doesn't start till 10:30, and the first 30 minutes is all announcements anyway. So we're not in a super hurry for that since I'm at the center.
Yeah.
And for those of us just joining, by the way, we started streaming early today at 9:30 because I have a class that starts at 10:30. So I saw a lot of people joining us right around the 10 o'clock mark. So if you're like, hey, what's up? They started without me. That's the reason why. So sorry if you missed part of the show, but the replay is always available. And Mark says he can save the show. He's volunteering to take Dr. K's place next week when she's at her bodybuilding show. And he has topics, why not to drink during meals, what to be grateful for, and that 3, you are not the problem, your money is. Mark, I don't know about that last one. Money's not the problem, you are. That's the name of the book. You're like the opposite. We could have a very animated discussion about this probably.
But thanks for bringing up the water piece. That's the other thing with stomach acid. Guys, don't drink water with your meals. Everybody does that. I've intuitively never done that. I've always wondered why I go to restaurants and, they're like, what do you want? I'm like, water. And then the glass just sits there. I've taken one sip. I've never drank water with my meals. I mean, it sits there. When you drink water with your meals, you dilute hydrochloric acid, so it's not digesting your food as well. So drink water probably like, 15, 20, 30 minutes before your meal, and maybe 30, 40, 45 minutes after your meal, or even later. That way you're letting the concentration of what hydrochloric acid you're producing do its thing. So, and it expands your food, so then you're fuller faster. Sometimes people don't feel so great. Maybe that's a good thing for somebody.
And I remember seeing recommendations if you want to drink so many glasses of water before you eat so you don't eat as much. But if it dilutes the acid, then it's not helping you to break it down as easily.
Yeah, it's
interesting. See, I never would have thought of that. This is why it's good to have Dr. K here with us and Mark to spur the conversation, and the cat in the background who's saying, "Feed me." You're talking about food.
Yeah, he's having a day. But yeah, so the zonulin we talked about, gluten has been associated with hypothyroid. Definitely, guys, remove gluten from your diet. And gluten's a tricky thing. It, even though things say gluten-free, even though I still recommend buy gluten-free if you're going to buy box stuff, which I don't love, but buy gluten-free. But gluten can actually kind of start reestablishing itself. So even though they make something gluten-free, it has a way of kind of regenerating itself a little bit. So you can buy like Red Hill steel cut, gluten-free steel cut oats, put them in the freezer. Something about the cold that I've read kind of stops it from regenerating. But I still recommend buying as little processed food as possible. So no boxed, canned, jarred, whatever items, as minimal amount of that as you can use, the better. Like my diet right now has no processed food. I mean, it's sweet potato, asparagus, chicken. I do eat a little bit of oatmeal. It's gluten-free when I get it, which hasn't been. And I have had no sneezing attacks. I mean, it's just fascinating, some of the things that have resolved. So one ingredient items, I know that's challenging in our life. Not to say that you can never have anything, but the more you can stick to non-processed foods and unprocessed sugars. So if you're going to use honey, use like organic agave, stevia I'm on the fence with, or monk fruit sweetener is great. That's a good one.
For my class, I got all kinds of organic processed foods. It's great. And it has gluten too. I got ones with extra gluten in it.
Okay. I'm coming. That sounds so good right now. It doesn't matter. It just all sounds so good.
You could 4 days of all kinds of junk food, because Access is all about your body needs sugar. So buy food for the bodies. I don't know, but that's... Mark will probably like to come to the Access classes for that reason. And he has a new acronym. For people who don't know, I'm an acronym nerd, but he gave me the acronym MISERY. Mark is seriously educated and ready year round.
Oh my gosh. It's
Thank you,
hilarious.
Mark.
That's
I
great.
love that. I got to tweak that. I love the concept behind that.
I have no
So,
acronyms. I'm gonna have to come up with some acronyms.
I have enough acronyms for both of us, I think.
Good. Good.
But for folks watching, if you have any questions or comments, anything where you'd like us to take the conversation, even you, Mark, I know you'll have some jokey comment that you can throw out there, but feel free to make them. We love to follow the energy and go where you guys want us to take the conversation. The one thing that was popping up for me with the whole gluten topic is that for some people, it's not so much the gluten, but it is a sensitivity to the Roundup that is in the Roundup Ready crops. So like if you have the sensitivities to things like that, like they did a study where they took a name brand cereal. I'll not say it just in case, but they did this test and they found that Roundup was in this name brand cereal. And it's because for people who don't know what Roundup Ready crops are, they genetically modify the crop so that when you spray Roundup on it, literally it's resistant to it so it doesn't die, but all the weeds die. So you could spray the whole field very efficiently, not kill the plant, the crop that you want to harvest, but kill everything else. But where does the Roundup go? It gets absorbed in the root system. It's actually in the plant. So then when they make the food from these grains, then it's actually in the food. So soy is especially a big culprit with this, as well as wheat.
Yeah, and Roundup is a neuroendocrine disruptor, so that means it will also affect your endocrine system, your pineal gland, your hypothalamus gland. Those guys send signals for hormones, so we don't want that. So
yeah.
And some people are sensitive to gluten and some people are not. I want to make that comment too. Because I run these tests on people and some people's zonulin levels are perfectly fine. So they may tolerate gluten much better, but nevertheless, I would still kind of recommend maybe not doing the gluten thing.
And if you do, GMO free and organic whenever you can.
Yes.
There was something else to that, but I forgot, probably because I saw Mark's comment pop up and it distracted me. It looks like he's not going to be able to be on after all. He's still in the federal penitentiary. But that's all right. Mark is always having an excuse not to be able to come to our energy clinics because he's in prison. But I offered to bake him a cake and send it to him, a special cake so he can get out, but he didn't take me up on it.
That didn't work.
It didn't
work. Take?
What's it going to take, Mark? No, but seriously, thank you for your contributions. We love it when you contribute and add a little lightness to the show.
So some healthy foods maybe for the gut. People ask, well, how am I going to heal the gut? There's lots of ways. Supplements that I like. I mean, please, I hesitate sometimes to say supplements because people go out and get them. I'm going to try that. I guess you can try aloe. Aloe juice is great for healing mucosal lining, but it can give you diarrhea if you take too much of it, and it has to be very pure. Berberine is great for healing mucosal lining. Golden seal is great for healing mucosal lining, killing parasites, but I really do it on a case-by-case basis. So there's a handful of things that I use, but aloe might be a safe choice to help. And healing foods, ginger's great, almonds are great, raw almonds for the stomach are great, full of magnesium too. Papaya is great for the stomach. Bananas are decent for the stomach, but you got to watch your potassium. So if you've got kidney issues and all those things going on, we really need to look at you more specifically. Let's see, what else? Those are the things that are coming up to. Bib lettuce is great. Butter lettuce is great. But sweet potatoes are really anti-inflammatory and really good, but diabetes and all those other things we got to watch. So it can be on a case-by-case basis. So those are some tips that in foods that might be helpful.
And if you don't want to do the guesswork, I mentioned it earlier, but I know we have probably different people watching now. If you go to emergencybeing.com, under services, there's one thing called quantum biofeedback. And Dr. K will do like an initial evaluation, and a lot of the stuff will come up when she can make some good recommendations, and then she could recommend like a bigger scope program if you're in the space to be able to receive that. But the initial evaluation, I think, even for some of my clients, there's like one in particular, I was like, well, before I can work with you in certain things, I would like you to go to Dr. K and just get this done so we have a baseline of physically what we know is going on. So it's just a really good blueprint. And there's I forget what it's called now, but she hooked me up to this machine and we did like a live demonstration on air about it. So it's totally painless and it can be done by a distance, but it really gives you and it's so accurate. Like it was picking up on these pesticides and things. And I used to work at a hardware store when I was younger, and the pesticide always made me sick. So like there's these correlations of things that the machine was telling that really lined up with my past work experience and all kinds of things. So it's a wonderful place where you can start getting a good idea of what you may need with, on a very reasonable budget for that.
From blood work, it's more intuitive than blood work, so it's Blood work may say one thing, the device may say something different because the body kind of tells it what's going on. So I kind of use both. But yeah, it's really helpful. As much the body's a complicated thing. It really is complicated. So we don't have it all figured out. If we did, well, we wouldn't have any research going on, now would we? I mean, we are constantly researching and finding new stuff and a new enzyme and a new neurotransmitter and a new something. So, yeah.
Mark asked a question here. This is not related to Dr. Cade necessarily, but there is how may we attend Heather McMillan's May 13th class? For those of you who don't know, I've been doing a lot of streaming with the Certified Facilitator of Access. All the information about the classes are at emergenceofbeing.com/possibility. May 13th is an Access Bar class. So that's the one that we're talking about. Yes, Mark, we'll have all kinds of fun food for the bodies. If you're wanting to come for my gluten-filled cookies and all that, that will all be included in the classes. But you can find out more information, check out some of the streams on that. That's all Access Consciousness related, which has a ton of great tools for possibilities.
Maybe he'll come then.
Maybe, if he's released from prison. I don't
Right.
know. That's the thing. He's always in this federal penitentiary. You can't, it's lucky that they give him a computer that he can watch our stream.
Amazing. They let him have it for that hour. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I do like a little reset plan of action tips to reset the gut, kind of, sort of. So you want to reset your diet, reset your lifestyle, and reset your mindset. That's all the energy stuff we're talking about. So get that cleared out. Number 2, you want to remove any unwanted pathogens. And that we kind of got to figure out what those pathogens are, because it's different for everybody. Number 3, you want to take your digestive enzymes and replace your stomach acid. So a digestive enzyme that has HCl would be helpful. Number 4, you want to regenerate your mucosal lining. So we want to heal that mucosal lining that's kind of been damaged. There's ways to do that. Number 5, you want to re-inoculate with a prebiotic and a probiotic. A lot of times they come together. I have some really good suggestions of pretty broad spectrum ones that you can use. And number 6, you might try to reintroduce some of those foods that might be under the pathogen list, really, that were problematic. And some will reintroduce and some will not, but we got to see what aggravated you. So that's kind of a little bit of a 6-step action outline, should I say, on how to help your gut. But those are all things we kind of got to look at. So
we could probably take an even deeper dive, plan a couple other topics around this. I know we talked about gut health before, but really, like in Louise Hay, if everybody knows the Hay House or whatnot, there's this one lady named Caroline Sutherland who's a world-renowned medical intuitive, and her first thing is you got to take care of the gut before everything else, because it's so paramount for the whole rest of the body health. So between that and toxicity reduction, those are like the 2 key factors.
Absolutely.
And how much is the gut relevant for the toxicity?
Tons. There's a lot of toxins that sit in the gut. Viruses can sit in the gut. And if you think about your gut, they've already done studies that your intestines, if you squish them together, they almost look like your brain, right? Kind of, sort of. They found that the stomach has enough neurotransmitters and nerval function that it can almost function independently on its own by 75%. So it's incredible. It has almost like its own little brain. So the gut is it's a huge place to work. It's one of the first places that I work to look at things, to get things cleared out.
Yep, and Mark did have a question. He says he starts his day. My wife actually does apple cider vinegar in the morning, apple cider vinegar and a little bit of lemon juice, but he starts his day with apple cider vinegar in my water. Is that okay?
I think that's fine. Anthony William, whatever his name is. I always, when people have names like Anthony William Anthony, I get all screwed up. But he recommends not apple cider vinegar. I've always been told that that's the thing. Apple cider vinegar with breakfast. I believe it's a teaspoon with breakfast and with lunch. To help digest your food. He feels that that's a really nasty acid. I do lemon juice, so I think the lemon is a great way to start. It kind of kicks the bile acids into motion, gets the digestion. So the first thing I do in the morning is have a glass, anywhere from 6 to 8 ounces, somewhat warm, because our bodies are warm, with a half of a squeezed organic lemon. That's what I
add
do.
A little bit of cayenne pepper in there, and you almost have the cleanse.
There you go. See, you could start a mini cleanse. That's what I start my morning with. And if I have time, then I do the celery juice prior to that. That doesn't always happen. But that's a good way to start.
Cool. And thank you, everybody, for being with us today. As a reminder, next week, unless Mark gets out of the penitentiary, there won't be a stream next Friday, at least not with Dr. K. And then also, there's no energy clinic this Monday. So you can sign up for the next energy clinic on the third Monday of May. I don't know why I'm saying Wednesday. That's so weird. Sandra Owens was also just commenting that she has heard many things about sauerkraut, that's
Yes.
good for the gut as well.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Sauerkraut's great for the gut for healing, and kefir, Kefir, but make it full of probiotics, but make sure that read the label. It doesn't have like added sugars, just plain, and add your own fruit.
Awesome. But catch us next time. You can go to emergenceofbeing.com. There is a live stream tab that has all the content from all the contributors, including myself, Casey McBride. Of course, Dr. K's channel is there as well, so you can catch everything. And we will catch you next time.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today for the show. Holistic Health and Healing is part of the Emergence of Being Contributor Network. Visit us at emergenceofbeing.com for all of our contributors' content and to learn about our services and upcoming events. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. You can contribute to the show by supporting our efforts and sharing our content with those you care about and those who need it most.